We've been doing this after-school business for quite a while, but we still are a misunderstood field. We haven't come together and figured out how to solidify as a third space for kids, something that's between home and between school, a safe place for kids, something that's there for them besides the streets. Researchers have shown us that this is a key area. Robert Putnam of Bowling Alone, recent work is showing us that if we don't equalize the opportunity between low-income and mid-income families, that we're going to lose part of what we consider our American dream. These skill sets and these things that middle-income, high-income people invest in their kids, in the sports, in the recreation, in the ballet, and the piano lessons, and the tutorials. These are things that are given, but our low-income kids don't always have access to them. And if we don't find a way to fill and address this gap, that we will no longer have a community where kids can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and succeed and successfully transition into our economy. This is why we're here today. This is why we're doing this work. So we're very excited. And when we heard Angela Duckworth on the screen there talking about grit, that really spoke to me, because one of the things in the research they're showing, out-of-school time has the flexibility to provide a lot of services. We aren't tied to the same academic, we are still tied to outcomes, as our work and Enrich showed us. There are many outcomes that we are obligated to. But we still have the flexibility to bring in the community and work together in ways that can excite and engage kids. Through this engagement, we can work with kids. Now, so my story of grit has to do with after school. I didn't think I had any grit, as Angela Duckworth talked about, grit being what we need for our kids. I didn't think I had it when I was a kid. I had a learning disability, but it was never diagnosed. So when I was in my high school program, struggling with my English classes and being written off by the teachers as being lazy, I believed it. I just thought I didn't have grit. I just didn't have it. But what Angela Duckworth and other researchers' work is showing us is that you can engage kids. Some kids, they did an M&M test for IQ. IQ is supposed to be a constant. Well, they gave kids M&Ms. So every IQ question you got right, you got an M&M. Well, IQ scores went up. I thought IQ was a constant. How could that happen? Well, what they found out was that some kids were going to score the highest no matter what. Those were the kids born with grit and value testing, and they were going to make sure they were going to make the highest grade no matter what. M&Ms made no difference to those kids. But other kids, they didn't have that same incentive. It was just a test to them, and they were going to score a level, and that's okay. But when they had an incentive, they scored higher. And for me, my incentive was my after-school program in high school. I was in the speech squad, which is why I can stand in front of you guys today. So in the speech squad, I participated. I was raised by a single grandmother, a working woman, and I was home alone and had nothing to do, much like a lot of our kids in our programs. So I went to the after-school program and I got engaged. And because I was engaged and I had reason, that teacher told me, if you don't go get that English grade up, you don't get to compete on the weekends. You don't get to go to the tournaments. So I turned around and went to those English classes, and I worked my hardest to get my grades up. Now, I never got them up that I want my children to see my report cards. Never got them up quite that high, but I did get them high enough to compete, and it was an incentive. It is something. So, today I stand here, not just as the director of an after-school division, but as a participant that truly believes in what it can do for a child. So I'm going to talk right now about our work. So this is what you have at your tables is a handout, which is a shorter version of the online report. The full report is about 30 pages, and it is on the website, the www After School Zone. But at your tables you have this. And so I'm going to talk about our work, so you can go ahead and advance it. We really categorized, we want to make sure that Enrich After School is keeping All kids safe all day in all systems. So all kids we see, as I talked about, is this opportunity gap. We're seeing that with summer learning. We're seeing that with what Robert Putnam's work, but we've got to do something. We're seeing that in surveys that kids aren't prepared for our workforce. So we've got to equalize the access for these. What we looked at is we know that 1 in 24 students that are in economic need receive subsidy to attend after-school programs. We know that 320,000 kids in our Houston community do not have access to after-school care. In our CASE programs alone, we had 20 programs that had federal funding. 70% of our money is from federal government. That ended last year. That through 20, at least from CASE alone, programs trying to find local support. We have to make sure that we are equalizing this opportunity. So we had 3 committees. One committee worked on the financials and created a system to track these funds so that we can better identify the areas of need. Next one, all day. Another committee worked on the research, and we conducted 2 major pieces of research. So all day, we want to make sure that that 3 to 6 time frame, which is so critical for youth, is having access, all kids have this all day. We know that in our communities, we're seeing increase in gang participation. We need safe and supervised activities, and we need a success ratio. And so what I mean by that, and I already forgot what I meant by that, guys, I have to say. You know, one of these true moments on stage. What we did is we found, this is our one piece of research by Dr. Cleet Snell. It's back. Just took a second, a little theater training, right? Dr. Cleet Snell we hired from University of Houston to look at our after-school programs and do a historical trend analysis, and to look and try to find what is that success ratio inside a community that can say, this is where after-school programs have been, and this is what we're seeing in reductions in juvenile justice offenses. And so what we found in our communities was that, of course, the lower number of after-school programs had the highest number of juvenile justice infractions, and the reverse. When a program had 6 or more and when a zip code had 6 or more after-school programs, it was the success ratio. So when communities take the time to invest in these after-school programs, kids are seeing less engagement in risky behaviors and getting in trouble a lot less often. So we have to make sure. The other big thing that we know now is where our communities have had after-school programs and the communities in need and where we need to go. So we have a sort of a start of a map. But again, the research is based on what is in our afterschoolzone.org. We track this stuff. So not only are we tracking the funding, we're tracking the placement. It's really important that the community help us put this information into the zone. And finally, our last piece of research was in relationship to all systems. We all have to be involved. We all need avenues to work with our kids, whether you be a corporation, a school educator that wants to stay late, or a community-based provider that wants to provide fencing. We all need access to these kids. We all need to invest so that we can see a return on investments. We need a link. So the 2 pieces of work that we really did here is we started a quality framework. We created a logic model. We said, what does our community believe, and addresses the needs and all the way to the impact areas. We linked it to the national research. We also created 2 compendiums. We linked to one that's a national compendium, and then we created a local compendium so we can link this to our logic model. So we're tying the research down, that informing practice. And then finally, we're going to have, the last piece of research was done by Dr. Peter Witt from Texas A&M. Dr. Peter's survey stakeholders, I heard an A&M woot, but what he did was he surveyed stakeholders, and he found that we have overwhelming consensus in our community that people believe out-of-school time is a way, an effective strategy for delivering and impacting our kids. The overwhelming consensus provides us the ability to fill this room today and to continue with the next stages of our work. The other thing is that it created very high expectations. They want after school to do it all. Everybody said the same thing. Academics, improvement, social skills, safe place. They want after school to have all the outcomes. It's one of the first places I've seen a middle school kid agree with a superintendent. Surveys, we did this wide range, so you could say kind of agree all the way to strongly agree. Everybody strongly agreed across the board. So we have high expectations. And the research shows what? When you have high expectations, you will succeed and you will do better. So we are facing our next stage. And our next stage includes a return on investment study with Texas A&M. It's already underway. And we have some Texas A&M students in here that are going to work with us on this study. Can you please stand? Are they here yet? There they are. So these brilliant minds will work with local leaders. We have we have certified public accountants. We have people from the controller's office at the city. We have HGACs donating time from someone from their planning department. We're creating a task force to partner with these students so that we can do a return on investment study. Again, Molly mentioned it, and then look at how we can transfer and create formulas that can be applied here. The National After School Alliance is also involved so that they can bring this to other cities as well. So we're very excited about that. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to talk about these other two pieces today. They were not originally on my PowerPoint. But I have to say that last week, I got a call from Leslie from the Houston Endowment, and we have been awarded a grant to continue the work of Enrich After School. So thank you, Houston Endowment. So after I heard from her, I wouldn't put the number 2 and number 3 back in. Because what we have to do is we have to get the best practices. We have to tie them to the what are the cost-effective best practices that can be learned from. We're going to work with a university partner. We're going to go into these after-school programs. Look at the different models. A drop-in program. What does quality mean for a drop-in program? What does quality mean for a program that's doing all the way to academic achievement? There are different levels. We have to identify the different models and what is quality for each of those models, and then call out best practices, and of course highlight them where? On the afterschoolzone.org. Okay. And then finally, come together as a community to look at those outcomes. Again, that survey was great. It said we should do it all. But how do we really define that? What are the measures that we use? Is there a way that we can work together as a community to look at our outcomes, to go and talk to funders, not just the Houston Endowment, to say this is what after school is about. These are what we can achieve. These are the outcome measures that we stand behind. And let's drive, because if we have a clearer picture of what we're trying to achieve, we will be able to design our services better and reach our kids. And so finally, I want to thank a few other people for number 4, because we will be involved with our Education Foundation of Harris County. Doug Kleiner is here. Doug, are you in? There you are, Doug Kleiner. And John Meredith, the chair of the Community Leaders Board. We have to turn this research over. We have to turn this research over to people that can lead us in a call to action tour. We need to go and visit our electeds. We need to go and visit our corporations. We have to visit our superintendents. So we are going to, the next phase, be bringing this work and giving it feet.